I used to have several sites. Now I kind of like the grower's edge. It gives me that cash max. You can tell it which markets you're looking for, and it will tell you what your highest net back is based on the price they're paying at that time and the basis that they're paying. And that's pretty handy because I don't have to go to so many different sites.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name is Cody Bills. This is Logan Burgess. Today is August 13th, one day after the WASDE report, and we had the market, especially corn here, trading down 16 3/4 cents on the December contract. Soybeans was able to hang in there, trading up 2.5 cents on the November contract. We had wheat in Chicago for September trading down 6 3/4, and Kansas City wheat trading off 4 cents. I think the big story here today is the reaction in corn. Yeah. You know, we obviously erased all the gains that we made yesterday. Are we going to be going lower tomorrow?
Yeah, I think there's a real chance that we could, Cody. Certainly in terms of market expectations, what the USDA released yesterday came as a surprise. A lot of traders were positioned expecting some bearish numbers out, so I think a lot of people got caught on the wrong side, had to cover those. But the bottom line, I think you captured it well yesterday when you said that this appears to be a bullish surprise and really a long, broad bear market here. If we take a look at the December chart here, a daily candlestick chart, you can see that the trajectory of the price action really is unchanged, even considering yesterday's action. And I think that really hits at the fact that when you look at U.S. ending stocks of 2013-14 U.S. corn, it's not a major revision. I know we saw a little bit of that in soybeans. We'll get to that in a minute. But for corn, not to the same degree. In July, the USDA projected stock-to-use ratio of 15.4 for the upcoming crop. That now sits at 14.5. So certainly a revision there. But bottom line, it seems like a slight revision to what's still going to be the largest crop we've ever produced.
Yeah, and you know, I think when you look at soybeans, it's a little bit different story. Today, we did have kind of an interesting trade. Yeah. You know, we traded up to around 12.40 in the highs, closed out around 12.27 3/4. You know, typically, when you look at a price action like this, you kind of have, if you look at the daily chart here, you kind of have a candle that looks, it's called a doji. You have this long wick. It traded up there and it ended up closing down near the low side of the range. Oftentimes, that sort of trade reaction can actually kind of signal the stopping of a trend or at least the reversal of a trend. I think most likely, this is going to signal a pause. You know, if we see tomorrow, we have a very small body in this candle, and the body goes from 12.25 to 12.27. If we see tomorrow a close below that 12.25 where we kind of engulf that body today, that would be confirmation, and there's a good chance we could trade down a little bit from these levels if we get that kind of a trade. But I think the truth is, when you look at these, the revisions that we saw yesterday are material. The revisions, I think, are enough to change the trend of this market. Yep. I think most likely what we're seeing is a pause. We did have some resistance, a previous low printed back here in July. That was right around that 12.24 level. So I think that's offering up a little bit of resistance. Yep. I say most likely what's happening here is we're pausing. We'll probably be caught in a range here between this 12.65 level and possibly 11.94 level, at least going into mid-September.
Yeah, you know, Cody, here if we just compare the two, corn and soybeans on the new crop, certainly here once again we saw exceptional strength out of new crop soybeans with respect to new crop corn. As you can see here on the ratio chart, we're now sitting about 2.75 just in terms of that new crop soybeans with comparison to new crop corn. And certainly, you know, I think just kind of piggybacking on what you said, it seems very different in terms of what the revisions were from the USDA yesterday for corn and soybeans. For corn, a minor revision on a massive crop, but for soybeans, 25% of U.S. ending stocks were revised in yesterday's numbers. Do you kind of agree with that? Would you expect this to continue here in terms of relative strength?
Yeah, absolutely I do, and I think part of another reasons why soybeans ended up trading down near the low side of the range is because it was probably getting dragged down by corn and by wheat here today. Right. The relative weakness of corn. I think corn is the dog here. There's an awful lot of supply out there, not as much as we expected, but a serious amount of supply, and I think that's going to continue to weigh on prices here. I know we got a couple reports coming out later on this week. We had some export sales tomorrow. Maybe you could walk through those. Yeah,
well, actually yesterday or tomorrow from the USDA, we will be getting EIA ethanol production out. If we look at the crush margin in Iowa just over the last week here, we've seen it back off a little bit. If you remember, 2 weeks ago we saw a marketing year high sitting around 250. It's now positioned around 230. So that might slow down a little bit of crush pace out of the ethanol sector, but we're still expecting a pretty good showing from the EIA numbers tomorrow. And then Thursday, Cody, as you said, we do have export sales reported. And yesterday, kind of one thing to note here is that we had some pretty darn good export sales of U.S. corn and soybeans that kind of got overshadowed by yesterday's report. If we look at what was reported there, we saw about 830,000 metric tons of soybeans sold to China and unknown destination combined. So certainly a very strong showing there. A slightly smaller sale to Mexico was reported yesterday. So those won't actually be in tomorrow's numbers. Those we'll have to wait for another week for those. But just wanted to mention that. We'll keep you posted on expectations for both reports here on GrainTV and on Twitter. You can follow us over there at GrainTV is where you can find us. I think that kind of wraps up what we saw here one day after the August WASDE report. Thanks a lot for joining us on GrainTV. We'll see you tomorrow for the ethanol report.